or conservative.
That's why there is that support, not because of undue influence.
See, it's definitely not because of undue influence. And anyone who ever listened to Fox News or talk radio or any kind of conservative outlet or conservative influencer over the last 40 years heard basically word for word exactly what he said. Weird, because they don't have any influence, yet they all seem to have that exact same line of thinking. That, oh, Israel, it's the only democracy in the Middle East, and everyone else is a fucking maniac just ready to blow you up with a bomb. And that's why you need to support Israel, because we're the ones really fighting the terrorists for you. Now, I did kind of what I did before, where I cloned his voice, Finley's voice, and I took out a few passages from his book that I thought would be fun to take a look at. You can get the full copy of the book on archive.org if you're interested in it. It's very thick. We're not going to go over very much of it. I just wanted there's a couple little things that kind of illustrate some of the things that we talked about tonight. But if you want to listen to or read the whole thing, it's about 400 pages, and it's on archive.org in PDF format. And you're free to download it. He's written more books since then, but this is a good little window into what was going on as early as 1979 when all this business kind of, or 78 really, when all this kind of begun with him. Here is part of the foreword where he talks about how hard it was just to get it published, because by this time, by the 1970s and 80s, they already owned basically all the media outlets, owned or operated, or both, all of the media outlets, all the movie studios, all of the newspapers, all the radio networks, all the TV networks, all the publishers, a lot, and they controlled a lot of academia as well. And so he writes this book. He's a former congressman, and you would think that it would be easy for him to publish a book, especially if it's an expose about a shadowy group that's secretly controlling America. You'd think that if nothing else, that'd be kind of tasty, right? You'd want to have a little read of that book, but no, not so much.
My quest for a publisher began in March 1983 and was predictably long and frustrating. Declining to represent me, New York literary agent Alexander Wiley forecast with prophetic vision that no major U.S. publisher would accept my book. He wrote, "It's a sad state of affairs. Bruce Lee of William Morrow and Company called my manuscript outstanding, but his company concluded that publishing it would cause trouble in the house and outside, and decided against taking the heat. Robert Loomis of Random House called it an important book, but reported that the firm's leadership decided the theme was too sensitive. 20 other publishers also said no."
So all these publishers are like, oh yeah, it's a great book, but we're not touching this. So it would seem that these tentacles are not just limited to their access to the White House, to the House chamber, to the Senate. These tentacles seem to be going everywhere, including book publishers. You want to know why boomers are so fucking retarded when it comes to this topic? This is why. This is why. Where would they hear about this? There was no internet. There was no, censored or not censored. There was no internet. Everything was censored. They wouldn't allow these kinds of books to be published. And it's kind of funny, even the guy that this is happening to, Mr. Finley, has a hard time figuring it out. And he never, ever, as far as I can tell, starts to think about it in racial terms. But he certainly wasn't thinking about it in racial terms while it was happening or while he even wrote this book. In this part of the book, he talks about one of his good friends, a fellow Republican who worked at the Federal Reserve, I think, and how he asked him, hey, it'd be nice if you gave me an endorsement. And he said, well, I can't. And but listen to this. You would think that he had put it together. Oh, because you're a and I just realized that all act when they feel threatened, they do act as a monolith. And even though ideologically, in every other way you agree with me, I can't criticize Israel in a very reasoned way without you turning on me, because be Americans.
It was a year of surprises, the greatest being the reaction to my candidacy of Dr. Arthur Burns, former chairman of the Federal Reserve Board and now ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. Just after the primary election, I explained my campaign plight during a telephone conversation on legislative matters, and Burns responded generously. "We simply cannot afford to lose you. Your re-election is very important to the entire nation." Gratified, I made a modest request. "If you would put those sentiments in a letter that I could use in the campaign, that would be a great help." His endorsement was not a high priority objective. In fact, I did not even think to ask for it until he praised my record. But I expected Burns to agree without hesitation. Why not? The courtesy was routine for a Republican as senior as I, and Burns had been not only a lifelong and outspoken Republican, but a close friend throughout my career in Congress. Several years earlier, at my request, he had spoken at the commencement program of my alma mater, Illinois College. Our views on economic and fiscal issues were the same. His answer was the deepest wound of a traumatic year. "Oh, I couldn't do that. It's your views on the PLO. I'm sorry." I was stupefied. I am used to surprises and disappointments, but this refusal left me speechless. A lesson, no event, before or since, disclosed to me so forcefully the hidden leverage of the Israeli lobby on the U.S. political scene. This great, kind, generous elder statesman, a personal friend for 20 years, could not ignore the lobby and say a public good word for my candidacy.
And notice how he doesn't make the connection. He doesn't say, and that's when I learned this lesson, the lesson that the are a separate people that work for their own interests and will turn against you even if we're good friends for 20 years and I have you speak at my alma mater and we agree with everything and I'm a senior Republican and this should just be, a simple request, a minor request, but now I know that I can't trust you because you're and that you're looking out for the interest of and it doesn't matter who you got to throw under the bus to do it. No, that's not how he frames it. He doesn't frame it in racial ways. He does it the exact same way that these fucking Johnny-come-latelys are doing on Twitter. All these people who are now sensing that there's a great noticing underway and that they need to get in front of it and direct that energy back in a direction that's safe. And that is the same direction that he kind of, I think, to keep his mind safe from having to face these kinds of truths. And he says that, oh, wow, that shows you how powerful AIPAC was. So it shows you how powerful AIPAC was, that even this guy who's been my good friend, this guy has been my really good friend, even he's afraid of AIPAC. I don't think he's afraid of AIPAC. He agrees with AIPAC. See, when it comes to, there's left-wing, there's right-wing. When it comes to Israel, there's just. And that's why you can't have them in positions of power. That's why you can't have them in positions of power in government, why you can't have them in positions of power when it comes to Silicon Valley or any kind of infrastructure or any kind of crucial industry at all. Certainly not banking. And yet there they are. And all these people that suddenly become critical of the actions of these behavior of these, they all frame it the same way he just did. Oh, it's these bad organizations. Oh, it's the ADL. It's not. It's the ADL. The ADL makes us look bad. This is why it's so important you need to have the proper framing, or it doesn't matter. You can notice all day long and you're still going to be a fucking retard.
Democrat Robinson solicited campaign contributions through advertising in newspapers from coast to coast, stirring up interest by calling me a practicing anti-Semite who is one of the worst enemies that Israel have ever faced in the history of the U.S. Congress. He drew funds from each of the 50 states. In all, the campaign cost $1.2 million. the most expensive in Illinois history. We each spent about $600,000. University students from New York and California, as well as other states, came to Central Illinois to staff Robinson's phone banks and handle other campaign chores. Dirty tricks dogged me even when I wasn't campaigning and away from my district. The Chicago Council on Foreign Relations asked me to speak on foreign policy, and midway through my lecture on foreign policy one evening in Chicago, a man shouted from a doorway, "We've received a call. There's a bomb in the room." The crowd of 500 made a fast exit. The police later found a pipe loaded with bubble gum placed in the grand piano on the stage. Later, Robinson activists drove all the way to Detroit, Michigan, where I was a delegate to the Republican convention, to picket and to amuse onlookers with the chant, "Paul, Paul, he must go. He supports the PLO."
They're calling in bomb threats. They're raising millions of dollars. They're having around the country come in and run the phone banks for his opponent. It becomes the most expensive race in Illinois history. And this is a guy who checks all the boxes. This is the exact kind of a guy that you would think want. This is the guy that has supported civil rights. This is the guy that supported desegregation. This was the good guy that was doing all the things. He was doing all the things that supported. He was a social justice warrior. He said so himself. But then he said Israel maybe shouldn't be genociding the Palestinians. And he became enemy number one. Didn't matter who you were. And they had their tentacles everywhere. Everywhere. Places you wouldn't even expect. Or you might expect. Reagan. Zionist Reagan. As soon as he found out that AIPAC didn't like Findlay, he ran the other way. He abandoned him instantly.
At first, my plight escaped the attention of the Reagan presidential campaign. In fact, when his scheduling office learned that I was having a fundraising luncheon in Springfield, his manager asked if Reagan could stop by, since he would be nearby that day. That unsolicited warmth quickly chilled. When he was scheduled to visit Illinois, New York City organizers warned Reagan's managers, warning, "Appear friendly with Findlay and you lose New York." This led them to take unusual measures to keep their candidate a safe distance from me. Reagan's manager passed an order quietly, or so they thought, whispering. Under no circumstance is Findlay to get near Reagan, even though elsewhere in Illinois, congressional candidates were to appear on speaking platforms with him. Learning of the order, my manager, Don Norton, vented his outrage to Reagan headquarters. The Reagan team shifted gears again. This time they declared that all congressmen were to be treated alike during the day in Illinois. None was to share the speaking platform with Reagan. Congressman Ed Madigan, irritated when told he must either speak before Reagan's arrival in Bloomington that day or wait until Reagan had left the platform, made no speech at all. At Springfield, Reagan campaign staffer Paul Russo had only one assignment, but it was an important one. He was to keep me out of camera range when Reagan was nearby. I was literally corralled behind a rope 50 feet away while Reagan was photographed in the ceremonial rubbing Lincoln's nose on a statue at the tomb entrance. At the next stop, a coal mine near Springfield, Russo's team tried to keep me on a bus, and in the process trapped my friend, Senator Charles H. Percy, too. The purpose was to keep only me away from Reagan during his remarks to the crowd.
So Reagan couldn't even be photographed with this guy. the message had gone out. This guy is poison. Even Bob Hope, who he had Finley had a relationship with, he had arranged for a birthday celebration in the House chambers for Bob Hope some years before. And Bob Hope, who was a outspoken Republican, would often do, he was a popular guy. Most people, younger people, probably don't know who he is. He was a popular comedian, but a lot of World War II vets knew him because he worked with the the USO or whatever the organization that would put on entertainment for the troops. And so he was a very well-liked, very popular American comedian at the time. And so having him at an event was going to raise a lot of money. And, you could charge, that's how you could raise campaign money, is say, hey, we're going to have dinner with Bob Hope. And then all the rich people would pay for a table at this dinner. And then Bob Hope got the call.
The panic even spread to Hollywood. Bob Hope, who never wavered under enemy fire on war fronts in World War II and Korea and withstood heavy criticism for his support of President Nixon's Vietnam policies, encountered a new and more devastating line of fire when he agreed to appear at a fundraising event for me in Springfield. 10 years earlier, I had organized a 75th birthday party for Hope in the House of Representatives. It was the most fun-filled moment in the House I can remember. Hope and his wife sat in the gallery as one congressman after another voiced their praise of the great entertainer. The tributes filled 14 pages of the congressional record. Gratefully recalling the unique party, Hope agreed to help in my 1980 campaign. His manager, Ward Grant, knowing from the start that I was being opposed by pro-Israel activists because of my work on Middle East policy, declared, "We need men in Congress who speak their mind." Coast-to-coast pressure quickly brought a change. Don Norton recalls an urgent telephone message he received from Hope's manager. Grant told me that Hope was getting tremendous pressure from and Jews all over the country. He said it's gone to the point where Hope's lawyer of 35 years, who is has threatened to quit. The pressure was beyond belief, like nothing they had ever experienced before, and Hope just couldn't come.
So even then, there's the racial element that he doesn't seem to be putting together. Even Bob Hope's lawyer of 35 years, who was threatened to quit if he went and did a dinner with this guy. And Bob Hope acquiesced. Because that same racial solidarity that lawyer of Bob Hope's had, Bob Hope didn't have. So that's yet another tentacle. And it's funny, he's like, it even reached to Hollywood. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Fucking Hollywood. What did you fucking expect? So then he talks about how Bob Dole was a senator at the time, and Bob Dole mentioned that even in his home state, people were actively campaigning against him. That this campaign existed in states all across the country. In every single state across the country, they were fundraising with using his name, saying he had to be defeated.
The campaign to remove me from Congress had started early in 1979 and covered most of the next 4 years. It attracted the attention and resources of people in every state in the Union. Reports from friends suggested its national scope. Senator Bob Dole of Kansas, for 6 years my colleague on the House Agriculture Committee, said he heard pro-Israel leaders in Kansas speak with great emotional intensity about my candidacy, both before and after Election Day. Clarence Palmby, former Undersecretary of Agriculture, learned that my defeat was the principal 1982 political objective of the partners in a large New York City law firm. After my 22 years in Congress, losing was, of course, a disappointment, but my main reaction was wonderment. I was puzzled by the behavior of the pro-Israel activists. Why did they go to such trouble to eliminate me from Congress? Why did people from all over the country